I had always believed that my relationship with my mother-in-law was one of the lucky ones, the kind that everyone else admired. She was warm, supportive, and kind, always making me feel at home. From the moment I married her son, I had been welcomed into their family with open arms. We shared countless moments of laughter, warmth, and familial love. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, the picture of a happy family. But perfection, as I would soon discover, is often nothing more than a well-crafted illusion. It all began one quiet afternoon, after a family gathering at our house. I had just finished cleaning up when I noticed something strange. My mother-in-law had left behind a small, leather-bound journal on the kitchen table. I didn't think much of it at first. She often left things behind when she came to visit. But this time, something about the way it was left, as if it had been forgotten deliberately, made me pause. It felt different, almost as if it was calling to me. I hesitated. Part of me knew I shouldn't go through it, but the curiosity gnawed at me. I opened the journal slowly, careful not to damage it. The pages were old, yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant yet shaky. The first few pages were filled with mundane details, everyday accounts of life from long ago. But then I came across something that made my heart race. The entries began to talk about a series of strange events, a series of secrets that had been carefully hidden from the rest of the family. There was mention of a forbidden love, of relationships that had been kept under wraps, and most chillingly, there was mention of my husband, Hassan, in ways I never expected. I flipped through the pages faster now, feeling my pulse quicken. What was this? Why had she written all of this down? And why had she kept it hidden from everyone? It was then that I stumbled upon an entry that stopped me cold. It was dated years before I even met my husband, back when my mother-in-law was still young and newly married. The entry read, "I've made a terrible mistake. He's not who I thought he was. I can't trust him, and I fear for what might come next." The words were chilling, and my mind immediately raced to find meaning. Who was she talking about? Who was this person that had caused so much fear? And why had she never mentioned this to anyone? My heart pounded in my chest as I continued reading. The entry revealed a series of troubling events, broken relationships, lies, and a web of deceit that had been carefully spun to protect the family from the truth. But the most disturbing part of the journal was the secret that had been hidden from everyone, including me. My mother-in-law had known something about my husband, something so dark that it had been buried for years. I couldn't stop shaking as I closed the journal. My mind was racing, 1,000 questions swirling round me. How could I have been so blind? Had I been living in a lie this entire time? I didn't know what to do. The person I thought I knew, the woman who had always been kind and supportive, suddenly seemed like a stranger to me. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces of my life began to shift. What was the real story behind my husband's family? What had I been unknowingly a part of? It was in that moment that I realized I had to confront this. I couldn't ignore it anymore. There was a dark truth buried within this family, and I had to uncover it, no matter the cost. The next morning, I decided to confront my mother-in-law. I had to know what she was hiding. I had to hear it from her own mouth, to understand the truth, no matter how painful it might be. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. She smiled when she saw me, but there was something in her eyes, a hesitation, a flicker of fear. "Is everything okay, dear?" she asked, her voice gentle. I nodded, but my heart was pounding in my chest. "I found your journal," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her face paled, the smile vanished from her lips, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "You shouldn't have gone through it," she said softly. "I had to know," I replied, my voice shaking. "What's going on, Mom? What is it that you're hiding from us?" From me, she didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked over to the table, her hands trembling as she set down the knife she had been holding. She stared at the journal, and for a moment, I thought she might tell me everything. But then, she sighed deeply and shook her head. "I never wanted you to know," she said, her voice filled with regret. "But I suppose it's time you understood the truth. The truth about your husband, the truth about this family, and the truth about me." Her words were heavy, like a weight on my chest. And in that moment, I knew that the world I had known was about to come crashing down. The tension in the room was palpable as my mother-in-law's words hung in the air. I could feel the walls closing in, the weight of the secret pressing down on me. She had finally admitted there was more to the story than I had ever imagined. And now, it was time to face the truth, no matter how painful or shocking it might be. She motioned for me to sit down, and I obeyed, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. This was the moment I had been dreading. I didn't know what to expect, but I had to know the truth. "I never wanted you to find out," my mother-in-law said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's too late now. You've seen the journal, and now you have to hear everything." She paused, gathering her thoughts. It was clear this was something she had kept buried for a long time. Her eyes were clouded with regret, but there was also a certain sadness in them. She was no longer the woman I had known, the sweet, supportive mother who had welcomed me into her home. Now, she was a woman facing the consequences of her own secrets. "Your husband," she began slowly, her voice trembling, "he's not who you think he is. There are things about his past that I've never told you, things I thought I could protect you from. But now, you need to know. You need to understand what you're really dealing with." I felt a chill run down my spine. My thoughts raced. What could she possibly mean? My husband, the man I had loved and trusted with my life. What secrets could he be hiding? He was involved in something dangerous before you met him, my mother-in-law continued, her voice barely audible. Something that hunted him for years. And it's something that's still following him, following all of us. I was silent, my mind racing. "What kind of danger? What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaky. She took a deep breath and looked away for a moment, as if trying to summon the courage to continue. "It started with his father. Your father-in-law was a man who dabbled in dark things, in things no one should mess with. He got involved with people who were not who they appeared to be. There were debts, dangerous deals, and promises made to powers we can't even begin to understand." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you saying that my husband's father was involved in something supernatural?" The words felt absurd coming out of my mouth, but I couldn't deny the unease growing in my chest. My mother-in-law nodded slowly, her face pale. "Yes, and your husband, he got dragged into it. I tried to protect him, to keep him away from it, but I couldn't. The curse, it followed him. And now, it's following you too." The word curse hit me like a ton of bricks. A curse? Was this really happening? Was this some kind of twisted family myth, or was it something far darker? I didn't know how to process what she was saying, but part of me knew there was truth in her words. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces of the puzzle seemed to fit together. "Your husband's illness," she continued, "the one you've been dealing with. It's not just physical. It's the curse. It's a curse that's been passed down through generations, and it's never gone away. We thought we could outrun it, but it always catches up. And now, it's your turn." My breath caught in my throat. A curse that had been passed down. Was I really caught in the middle of this ancient, terrifying legacy? Could this explain everything? My husband's strange behavior, my own illness, and now my mother-in-law's cryptic warnings. It all seemed too surreal to be real. Yet here we were, trapped in this nightmare. But how do I stop it? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. How do I break this curse? My mother-in-law looked at me with a mixture of sorrow and helplessness. I don't know if you can, she said softly. I tried everything to protect him, to protect you, but the curse is powerful. It's not something you can just wish away. It requires sacrifices. It requires giving up something you can't afford to lose. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Sacrifices? What could possibly be worth sacrificing to get rid of this curse? My family, my life, my happiness. Was it all really tied to some dark force that none of us could control? I knew that whatever lay ahead, my life would never be the same again. The man I had married, the life we had built together, was based on lies and secrets that had been hidden for years. And now, the truth was finally coming to light. But it wasn't just about me. It was about my husband too. About the pain and torment he had been living with for so long. I had a decision to make. To continue living in ignorance or to face the darkness head-on and try to break the cycle once and for all. But first, I had to know the truth. What exactly had my husband been involved in? What was this curse, and how had it affected every woman who had married into this family? I needed answers, and I needed them now. My family's future, my own, depended on it. The more I learned, the less I understood. The truth my mother-in-law had revealed to me was like a tangled web of secrets, lies, and regrets. I had thought I knew everything about my family, about my husband. But now, it seemed like I was just scratching the surface of something much darker than I could have ever imagined. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I had to know what my husband had been involved in, what he had inherited from his father, what this curse really was. And most importantly, I needed to understand why it had come after me. The days after my conversation with my mother-in-law felt like a blur. I couldn't focus on anything else. My thoughts were consumed with the curse, with the unknown, and with the man I had married. Was he the person I thought he was? Or was there a side of him I had never seen? Could I even trust him? I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront my husband, to demand the truth from him. I couldn't live in this fog of uncertainty anymore. The secret of the curse was no longer just a family myth. It was something real, something tangible that had already begun to take its toll on my life. That evening, I waited for him to come home. The house was quiet, the weight of what I had learned hanging in the air. When the door opened, I could hear his footsteps echoing through the hallway. He seemed distracted, distant, and I immediately felt the tension between us. "Hey, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm but shaky. I had to know the truth. He looked at me, his expression softening, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he asked, setting his things down and walking over to where I stood. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. "I know about the curse," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I know about your father, and I know what's been happening in this family for generations." His face drained of color, and for the first time, I saw a look of fear flash in his eyes. How did you find out?" His voice was barely above a whisper, as though the words themselves could somehow make the curse real. "I found the journal," I said, my words cutting through the silence. "I know what your mother has been hiding, what's been passed down through the generations. I need you to tell me everything. What is this curse? Why has it been following your family? And why is it affecting me now?" He sat down heavily on the couch, his hands trembling as he ran them through his hair. I could see the weight of guilt in his posture, the way his shoulders slumped under the burden of the secret he had carried for so long. "I was hoping you would never find out," he said, his voice barely audible. "I didn't want you to be a part of this, to know the truth. It's not something you can just escape. It's part of who we are." I could feel my heart racing. I had waited for this moment, but now that it was here, it felt like a nightmare unfolding before me. "What do you mean?" I demanded. "What is this curse, and how do we stop it?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with sorrow. "It started with my father," he said, his voice thick with regret. "He made a deal with something he shouldn't have, and it's been haunting our family ever since. The curse follows the bloodline, and every woman who marries into this family, well, she becomes part of it. It's been happening for generations." I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. "So, the illness I've been dealing with, it's because of this curse?" I asked, barely able to process his words. He nodded slowly. "Yes, it's not just physical. It's more than that. It's the curse manifesting in your life. I thought I could protect you from it. I thought if I kept it hidden, you wouldn't be affected. But now, you're caught up in it too." I felt the ground beneath me shift, my world crumbling with every word he spoke. "What do you mean, caught up in it?" I asked, fear creeping into my voice. "What's going to happen to me? There's nothing we can do to stop it," he whispered, his voice breaking. "The curse is too strong. It's too old. It's not just a family problem. It's a force that we can't control." The air in the room felt thick with tension. I could feel the weight of his words sinking in, but I couldn't accept them. This couldn't be the end. There had to be a way to break free, to stop the curse once and for all. I couldn't let it destroy me, destroy us. "We have to try," I said, my voice steady despite the rising panic inside me. "We have to find a way to end this. I won't let this family's curse control my life. I won't let it control our future." For a moment, he just stared at me, as though he couldn't believe what he was hearing. But then, something shifted in his eyes. A spark of hope, maybe. Or was it desperation? "You're right," he said finally, his voice full of resolve. "We have to try, together." And that was when I knew the battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. The days following our conversation were filled with an intense mix of fear and determination. My husband and I had made a pact. We were going to confront the curse head-on, no matter what it took. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep this curse went. It wasn't just a series of illnesses or bad luck. It was an entire lifetime of suffering, hidden beneath layers of silence and deceit. And now, it had finally reached me. We both knew that breaking the curse wouldn't be easy. It was one thing to acknowledge its existence, but another entirely to do something about it. We had to face the truth about our family, no matter how terrifying or painful it might be. The first step was to gather everything we could about the curse's origins. My mother-in-law had mentioned a deal with something dark, something that had made this curse possible. She had kept the journal, the only known record of the family's secrets, but it was incomplete. There were gaps, parts that had been torn out, or were never written down. We needed to find out everything, not just for us, but for the generations that came before us, and the ones that would follow. Together, my husband and I spent hours combing through old family records, letters, diaries. We finally found the missing pieces of the puzzle. The deal had been made generations ago, but the exact details remained shrouded in mystery. There was a name that kept appearing, a shadowy figure who had promised power, wealth, and protection in exchange for a terrible price. The family had always believed they were safe from the curse, that it was just an old legend. But the curse wasn't a legend at all. It was a consequence, a payment for the blood that had been spilled in the name of greed. And now, it was my turn to pay. The more we discovered, the clearer it became. The curse was real, and we were caught in its web. But despite the fear gnawing at me, I refused to give in. I had to fight. I wasn't going to let this curse control my life, my marriage, or my future. My husband, too, was determined, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The fear of losing everything, the fear of losing me. There was a ritual, the only known way to break the curse, but it required something no one was willing to give, a sacrifice. A choice had to be made, and that choice could mean the end of everything. It was the price we had to pay to free ourselves from the darkness. The ritual had to take place in the house where it all began, the same house that had witnessed the first whispers of the curse. It was a place of great significance, the site where the deal had been made, where the power had been transferred. We had no other choice. As we prepared for the ritual, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. The house seemed to close in round us, the walls echoing with whispers of the past. It was as if the house itself knew what was about to happen. The night of the ritual, we stood in the heart of the house. Candles flickered round us, casting eerie shadows on the walls. My husband held my hand tightly, but I could feel the trembling in his fingers. He wasn't just afraid of the curse. He was afraid of what would happen to us once the ritual was complete. We recited the words from the diary, the ancient incantation that had been passed down through the generations. The air grew heavy, and the room seemed to spin round us. And then, we felt it. The darkness that had been lurking in the corners of the room for centuries began to stir. It was as if the very soul of the house was coming alive, responding to the ritual. The air turned cold, and a deep voice echoed from the shadows. It was a voice that I knew, but one I could not identify. The spirit of the curse had risen, ready to claim its payment. "You cannot escape," the voice said, low and menacing. "The price must be paid. There is no escape from what has been set in motion." I felt my heart race, but I stood firm. I wasn't going to let the curse win. This was our moment, our chance to break free. "We are not afraid," I said, my voice strong despite the terror creeping into my chest. "We break the cycle. We will end this." There was a long, agonizing silence. Then, a cold wind blew through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging us into darkness. For a moment, I thought we had failed, that the curse had claimed us for good. But then, I heard it, a faint whisper, followed by a loud, thunderous crash. The house shook, and the air around us seemed to tremble with the energy of the spirit that had been unleashed. The darkness began to recede, fading into the shadows. The curse, the spirit, everything that had haunted our family for generations, was vanishing. It wasn't over yet. The sacrifice was still to come. But now, I could see the light of freedom, the light of a future without fear. In the aftermath of the ritual, we were left standing in the silence of the house. The curse was broken. The darkness that had haunted our family for so long had been dispelled. The weight of centuries of suffering had been lifted from our shoulders. But it wasn't without cost. The price of breaking the curse was heavy. My husband and I had both paid a price. We had faced the darkest parts of our family's history, and in doing so, we had broken free. We left the house that night, the echoes of the past fading with each step. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We were free. Free from the curse, free from the darkness, and free to build a new life together.